Hey guys, I started filming this video yesterday, but I'm currently having a retinal purge going on my face, and I thought it didn't look that bad in real life. Well, it looked horrible on camera. And I don't have a problem with going makeupless, but that was just, the pimples were so distracting that I decided that I would get dressed the day after, which is today, and put on some makeup. When I'm talking about pretty knit things, I want to look pretty too, okay? So today I want to do a quick knitting podcast, just like a little thing, because for some reason it helps me to keep my thoughts straight or like, I don't know, organized when I can talk about stuff, right? Because I have quite a lot of whips going on right now, which usually I restrict myself to having 1 or 2 whips at a time, but now I'm having like 4 or 5. So I just want to quickly talk about them. I won't spend too much time on it. I just want to get a video out because honestly, I just feel like it. I discovered Cozy Knits by Claire, I think is the name of the channel. She's a very new creator on YouTube, and I think she currently only has 2 knitting podcasts out, but she has like little short ones of 18 minutes, and they don't feel rushed in any way, and she's only talking about like a couple projects. But in the past, I always felt like I had to do what Tiffany Lou did with her yarn corners and have like 50-minute videos, but that just isn't my style. I don't want to be tied to a certain genre of video or copy what other people are doing just because that's what seems popular. So I think this intro has been long enough already, so let's get started with what I'm wearing, which is my very first finished object of this month, or these past 2. It's been a while since I've done a knitting podcast. This is a freehand sweater that I don't have a name for yet, so please comment any suggestions. I have been really inspired by Broken Rib lately. I'm currently working on 2 projects with Broken Rib, and I am planning on making the Friday tee by Petite Knit, which I'll talk about later. But I've just been really inspired by Broken Rib and by that Gina Tricot sweater that when I started making this sweater wasn't yet a sweater that everybody and their mom was wearing, which were those big knit sweaters with the off-the-shoulder knit going on. And I made a sweater, which I showed in my previous podcast, so if you want to see that one, go check that one out. I wanted to do kind of a similar thing, but I realized the sweater was going to be too big, so instead of having it be off the shoulder, I decreased some stitches so that it would sit on my shoulders, and I didn't do an overlapping cowl neck. And so I wanted to try and make a second version, and so I got myself some Drops Air, and as you can see, it's still not off the shoulder, but because, I mean, that just didn't work out yet. But I do still like this. It's like a turtleneck, but it's still a pretty wide turtleneck, and honestly it's more practical because when you're wearing an off-the-shoulder sweater, that's fun and all, but when you're wearing a sweater, it means it's cold, so you will be wearing a t-shirt underneath it. And because I don't wash my knits that often, so you're gonna want to wear a t-shirt underneath it so you don't sweat directly into the sweater, and you can't do that with off-the-shoulder sweaters. So it actually worked out perfectly that I can still wear a t-shirt underneath this one. But because I didn't want it to be just like a simple, boring raglan sweater, because the sweater is still pretty basic, and I'm gonna make a pattern for this, and it will be very beginner friendly because there are no short rows, there's no crazy stuff going on. Like, the only techniques are the raglan and then the Broken Rib are probably the 2 hardest things. But in order to keep it a little bit interesting, I did the collar in Broken Rib instead of 1x1 or 2x2. And I wanted to do the same thing for the cuffs and the ribbing at the bottom, but I didn't end up doing that because it looked a little too weird. So I just went with a regular 1x1 rib. A couple of notes. I would have liked it to be a little bit wider still, but maybe I can kind of get it to be more flowy and drapey once I block it. But because all my blocking stuff is at my apartment, I can't do that right now. But hopefully I can get it to be a little bit looser when I do that. Second note, I have this thing whenever I freehand sweaters that the sleeves are always slightly too short. Like, I don't know how I do it. I measure them, I compare them to other patterns that I have and sweaters that I have made, and for some reason they always end up pretty short. Another thing is I'm still not really convinced of the length of the cuffs. Usually I go for 8 centimeters, but for some reason I wanted to do short ones for these. And I think it's okay, but again, I want to block the sweater so that they're a little longer. And then for some reason, I made my bottom ribbing too short. Like, okay, I'm not wearing a t-shirt currently, but I made it a little short, and I wanted to lengthen it a bit, but I ran out of yarn. So I ordered an extra skein, and then I received 2. So I don't know if I actually bought 2 or if I just received one on accident. But I don't know if you can see it, but it has a completely different color. I had to finish this half a sleeve, so it switches colors right here. This is a lot more bluish and a lot more white. Here it's green with like a mossy green undertone. Here is green with white. This is clearly a lot wider than this is. And also texture-wise, really weird, but it's a lot scratchier and not as soft as the rest of the sweater. It's really weird. Luckily, like, it's obviously because they're from a different dye lot, but I'm happy that it's not that noticeable. I mean, I will notice it forever, which is pretty annoying, but I'm happy that it happened on a sleeve and not like up here at the body or like on the cowl. But because of the different color here, I didn't want to cast on with that different shade at the ribbing to make it longer, because that would have been more noticeable, I think. It is a pretty cropped sweater, but I was going for that, but I think I should have made it a little bit more oversized, because now the cowl is big, but then the rest of the sweater is pretty fitted. So I'm happy with it still, but I think it's not oversized enough. But again, because I'm learning to draft patterns myself and stuff, they never work out exactly the way you want them to when you're doing it yourself, I feel like. But I mean, it's a learning curve, right? You start out by learning everything you can from different patterns, and then you start adapting it and it doesn't work out, and then it does, and then who knows. So I am planning on making a pattern for this, but that's going to be for like the far off future, for like a couple of months, because I want to focus on more summery and spring patterns right now. And speaking of spring patterns, my tulip top, let me quickly get her. My tulip top is currently in testing, and I've already changed a bunch to what I had done, thanks to my lovely test knitter Jane. She's one of my test knitters, and she finished the top in 2 weeks, which is insane. But she already pointed out so many things to me that I just missed overall. I'm really happy that these people actually want to voluntarily put in that much effort to help me figure out any errors or how to clarify certain things, because I have a little bit of difficulty with wording. Like, I'll try to overdo it by over explaining stuff, which ends up making it more difficult to understand. So I love having that outside perspective where people can actually tell me like what is unclear and what isn't, and what I should add. But it's a regular tank top with about 5 centimeters of ease with a folded hem, and then the shoulders overlap. It's a boat neck, and it has these cool overlapping shoulder details. If you want to see the process of me making this top, you can go to this video where I make this top and this sweater as well. It's a combined vlog of these two knits. It's a pretty fun one, so you can go watch it. It's very beginner friendly, I would say. The only like difficult thing is maybe to construct or sew together the little peaks, as was told to me by my testers. I definitely want to make a second version of this and make it cropped, so I can also add that to the pattern and have like multiple pictures of it. And one thing that I would change is that I would do it in a solid color, because this top is meant to be kind of simplistic. The texture and the different colors of the top kind of take away focus from the shoulder detail, which is the reason why I made the pattern. And also because this yarn is very, very textured. This is Anel Fine, a local Belgian brand. Yeah, I'm still really happy with it. Just need to take some proper pictures with this. I need to get over my fear of taking pictures of myself or having other people take pictures of me. Like, I literally have a boyfriend, I have a mom, I have a brother, I have friends who are willing to do this. But once I've saved up enough for a proper camera, then I can like go out with a couple of my friends and have them take pictures of me, and I take pictures of them with my designs, because I want to have different people too on my Ravelry. Another spring knit that I'm working on. This sweater is getting really hot. I might have to put something else on. This is the third project that I'm currently working on. First thing you can see, it's broken rib. This is, where the obsession is coming through. I was gifted some Kremke Soul Wool Edelweiss 6-ply, which is an alpaca that is usually meant for socks. But then I knit a pair of socks and I realized that I absolutely hate knitting socks and I don't actually wear them. So I used them to make shorts. Yes, I've been kind of eyeing the idea of knit shorts for a while, but I never really committed to it because I didn't know how to. But I just started freehanding them and they are looking awesome so far. One problem though is I ran out of the yarn that I was gifted right when I finished off the body, or like up to where I have to split the legs. And because the yarn is relatively new, not a lot of local online stores or sellers or like, you know, physical stores sell the yarn. The only local store that I know that sells it only sells the 4-ply, which is unfortunate. So what I did instead is I got Drops Alpaca, which texture-wise is really almost exactly the same as the Kremke Edelweiss, but the color match is kind of off. Definitely in bright daylight you can see it pretty obviously, but it's a lot more pinkish than the rest of the pattern, or like of the shorts. Here's where the pink starts and here's it's more purpley, which, I mean, it's too bad, but again, I'm happy that it's happening symmetrically so that only the legs, or like the pant legs, are gonna be pinkish, and it's not like one leg and then the only one is pink, you know. So I'm happy about that. I was pretty unsure about what I was gonna do for the waistband. At first I was thinking to fold this stockinette inwards and then sew an elastic into it so that it would only be broken rib on the outside, but I ended up not liking that anymore. And then I thought of having the stockinette show as the waistband, but I also did not end up liking it. So I'm actually going to keep it, the stockinette, rolled up like this, and then just sew in a little elastic thread so that it doesn't stretch out too much. And I'm gonna keep it like that, I think. I quite like it. At the bottom, I just cast off with a regular cast off, like knit one and then pull one over. I also want to put out a pattern for this one because it's pretty easy. There's no short rows. You can make it as long as you want. It goes by pretty fast. I love doing this, and increasing I thought was going to be difficult, but because it's broken rib, you have a knit row every other row. And so I just made it so that the increase row would always be on a knit row, so it doesn't get very complicated, right? So it's just in pattern very nicely. Like, you don't have to consider any of the knit or the purls on the rib rows. You can clearly see that this was inspired by the Friday tee because of the stripes and because of the broken rib, but I'm really happy with it so far. And I mean, I guess I'll just go into it. I really want to make a Friday tee or a tombow tee. She designed a tombow tee, and one of her testers made a version with dark brown stripes and light brown or like beige stripes, and I was like, damn, I really like that combination. But I did really like the broken rib of the Friday tee, and I did really like the thick raglan. So I think I'm gonna make a Friday tee in dark brown with beige stripes. I have always really liked the Friday tee, but I've always thought that I was too young to wear it. For some reason, it's like a type of shirt that I think you would only wear when you're a mom of two. I don't know, but I should just say fuck it and make whatever I like. Like, I shouldn't be concerned with looking TikTok appropriate, let's just say, like following all the micro trends and whatnot. So I definitely want to make one. I don't know when though, because I am trying to use up my stash first. I just donated a bunch of my stash of like single skeins or skeins that I haven't used, or acrylic skeins that I don't want to use, to a friend of my grandma who lives in a home. And I've cleared out a bunch of my stash that is just all knotted up, and I'm gonna throw that out. And now I only have like 2 or 3 sweater quantities of yarn left, and some skeins that I just think are too pretty to throw out or give away. But so I want to use up the sweater quantities first before I buy new yarn, you know? So I just have to keep track of what I want to make and then buy it as I finish other projects, right? So my third project is actually downstairs, so I'll show that later to you. But I just want to show one more thing, and that is the frog by Claire, I forgot her name, but her store is Dot Pebbles. But I bought her pattern for that little cute little frog about a year ago, and I made one a year ago, but it only has one leg, and the yarn was a bit too thin so you can see the filling peek through. But I thought it was just so adorable, and I still have these plastic eyes left from when I used to make amigurumi crochet when I was like 14. But I just never finished this poor guy. And then I don't know, I wanted to make a keychain, and I want to make a frog keychain. So I went to a local kind of dollar store-ish store, convenience store, and I got one big skein of acrylic yarn. Hey, don't hate me. I'm getting cheap yarn, and I'm gonna use all of it, okay? I'm gonna make a fuck ton of frogs from this, and I'm gonna give them to friends, and I'm gonna sell them to friends. Hey, I need to save up for that camera somehow, okay? Basically, I just wanted a keychain of a little frog, and I remembered that I have the pattern for it. And so I got some cheap yarn, and I used cheap yarn because it's gonna be easy to wash, because I'm gonna be dragging it all over the place with me, because if it gets dirty or it gets lost, like I didn't spend a bunch of money on yarn. And we're using 4mm DPNs in the pattern. I think she says 3 or 3.5, but I want to make it as big as possible, because then it's also easier for me to sew together, because you knit it flat and then you sew it together, and I think it's just gonna be really cute. And I also got a wide skein of the acrylic yarn, and I think it's gonna be so adorable. My brother brought me some raspberries. Okay, I'm gonna continue studying right now, and then I'll see you later when I get my last project from downstairs.